I want to tell you the truth about this year because the truth is more interesting than the version I could sell you. December 2025, I had a thesis and a huge stack of reading from a hunch I had that the same forces reshaping who owns America's small businesses, a retiring generation, a widening wealth gap, a private equity machine that was learning to love the term fragmented, were all converging. My fascination with shared ownership grew into this relentless commitment to looking for categories nobody with capital was watching closely. And I rediscovered and, quite frankly, fell in love with again the neighborhood laundromat. I couldn't have defended my hunch in a room full of underwriters back in December. And in truth, I probably still can't, at least not fully. But I've spent the past 7 to 8 months trying, and I am of the belief that trying in public out loud is its own special kind of discipline. Well, what I've learned since then is less about laundromats than it is about myself as an operator. I learned that a profitable business is not the same as a sellable, that the real test of transferability is whether its leader, the leader of a business, can step away for a month or so and the business can survive. And whether this key person has built a playbook that proves the filtration process to be true. Most of what is inside of a pitch deck is theater. Funders and lenders alike can smell theater emanating from their computer screens before even downloading the email attachment, let alone from across a room when you're presenting. So I started building the opposite of theater. After a hard, honest look at everything I claimed vis a vis everything I'd done, I set a new house rule for myself: bounded integrity. I challenged myself to organize a true, disciplined, uninflated opportunity pipeline, one that harvests businesses that owners can actually sell, that I can actually steward, and that the next generation of its workforce can actually operate and scale. I vowed to have real conversations consistently and with clarity, allowing them to evolve into organic relationships. I pledge to conduct multiple rigorous site visits as a means of cultivating my prospects into workable transactions. Sure, this is a hard way, a much harder way, rather, to build, but it's also the only way that I trust. And my work has picked up real edges. I've gone across sites as a secret shopper, which in my context means I literally take my clothes into a store, wash and fold a few loads, and quietly evaluate how a laundromat runs. And I field audited this across Atlanta, Alabama, and Georgia. And Florida, sorry. I have a capital structure that's priced down to the decimal: senior debt, a seller note, mission or catalytic capital, and a community equity injection, all modeled against base debt service coverage of 1.5 to 1.6x per store at acquisition. And this is before a single efficiency upgrade or operational improvement. I've curated owner outreach packages the way I would want to be approached myself if the business with my name on the door were changing hands and my life's work was the one on the line. None of this is a deal yet. However, it is the critical infrastructure that deals get built on, the architecture that a repeatable process, a roll up strategy, and an investment fund emerges from. And infrastructure is the part that people neither see nor are patient enough to develop. And something is happening that I didn't fully anticipate. The field has started calling back. I won Tuskegee University's 2026 Joint Annual Research Symposium's poster contest for my analysis of the economic benefits that shared laundromat ownership could deliver in Alabama's Black Belt. Turns out this was really just a practice round for my presentation at the 2026 Future of Equity Symposium in Palo Alto, California, which was hosted by Rutgers University's Institute for the Study of Employee Ownership and Profit Sharing. I was also invited to join the board of the Georgia Center for Employee Ownership with confirmation pending, and on a separate occasion to apply to become a TED Fellow. Last week, I submitted my application for Ownership Capital Labs Employee Ownership Accelerator, an Employee Ownership Fund Accelerator. None of these are finish lines. Bounded integrity requires me to say that invitations and proposals aren't outcomes. They are signals, though, evidence that people who have spent decades in the field look at what I'm building and see something that's worth pulling closer. Now, I guess I shouldn't really react with surprise because I've done this before by hand. Between 2019 and 2024, I acquired 5 small Miami businesses in retail, direct decorated apparel, textile repair, put roughly 1.75 million to work, ran the turnarounds myself, hired and trained local youth, and moved the portfolio into shared ownership. Nobody called it a fund then. It was much slower than a fund, much lonelier than a fund. Still, it taught me something no capital model could. I learned that, I learned what it actually takes for a worker who has never owned anything in their lives to believe the equity in their hands is real. In fact, I think I would argue I've spent my adult life studying one question from every seat that I could access. Why does ownership skip certain hands, generation after generation, and what's going to take it to stop? I arrived here from watching what happens to a neighborhood when the person who built something in it finally has to let it go, having no good options other than a stranger with a spreadsheet or a slow, undignified closure. The Deep South, as many of you know, is where this question lives hardest and where the answer will mean the most. A colleague and someone who I admire always says, so goes the South, so goes the nation. I grew up understanding that wealth in this country, particularly, has never moved evenly. The busy inner city blocks and the pastoral rural communities carry more of this lopsidedness than most balance sheets admit. Stewards, like us, have to build robust bridges between capital and the people actually salting our earth. We are entrusted to forge these pathways deliberately, correctly, and honestly. instead of fast and hollow and yielding a rerun of our neglect, our previous exploitation, our past betrayals. So the laundromat for me is simply where I've chosen to begin, essential, cash flowing, recession resistant, and squarely at the crossroads of the retirement wave and other phenomena that I'm working my hardest to address. This is where I actually am, in architecture built, a pipeline growing, a first capital raise taking shape, and the field beginning to lean in. Much further along than where I was in December, nowhere near finished, both true at once and on purpose. You don't owe me a full throated pledge of support or further attention to my endeavor for it to matter or for any of this to be true. Trust. I will continue to offer these updates and my missives. These are my field notes, my analysis as a disciple of cooperative ownership who hopes the conviction will spread beyond the few and across our community writ large. If this message did nothing else, I hope it kept one block in your imagination at least bright. Always faithful. Peace.